one-way stream. All right, let's get started. Oh yeah. Hopefully they can hear us and hopefully somebody responds. Only two, okay. Perfect. Oh, and did you give me a copy of the handout? Thank you.
And there's 2 large trays.
Okay, cool.
So is this on Zoom then?
It's on YouTube.
So they can't, like you can't say, can you hear me? They can answer.
I know I did.
Oh.
Nobody's answered me.
But you can. I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well. We'll just, actually, I'm going to grab one more thing. Let's see if somebody responds at home. You can hear. Ah, you can hear. Thank you, John. Excellent. Ah, you can hear. Thank you, John. Excellent. I got to shut that off now because I'm listening to my own self through my cell phone. All right. Cool. So I'm the pharmacist, the owner, the IT, the AV guy, I do it all. So, and most of you know me by now and know all that of me. So a couple new faces. So, but yes, I am the owner. Been doing this gig for about 18 years now. Absolutely love it. And so I'm just trying to get used to the whole COVID virtual stuff. So I wish I had it. If you know an assistant out there that wants to do this for free for me, have them come find me. I started last night with 12 slides and I was working on this presentation this afternoon and I'm up to 50. So, and I had to stop because otherwise we'd be here all night. I'm like, oh, I don't think I have enough material to fill up, an hour's worth of time. And now it's like, I've got 3 hours of material. So I'm still going to try to cram this into about 45 minutes and then leave about 15 minutes for questions or more. I mean, I can be here all night, honestly, but
all the slides are going to be online?
All the slides, well, I've got it zoomed in enough where you should be able to see the slides pretty well. Okay. So you don't have to frivolously write anything down. And then I think what I'm going to do is I'll do more videos with links to the PDFs and more information because there is just so much information. Yeah, we could spend 3 days talking about the gut. So I'm going to try to boil it down to 45 minutes. What's the key things that we want to learn about? And ultimately, what can we do, hopefully as simple as possible to get our health better, right? I mean, hopefully that's why we're all here. So, and thank you, Kelly, for everything. All right, so my medical disclaimer, I'm sure you've seen this before. I'm going to stand, I think, over here. That, this information is my opinion. It's based on all the research that I've done, my experience of working here for the last 18 years. So I don't want you to go home, stop all of your pharmaceuticals and, start gobbling down a bunch of probiotics. So that's what all this is. So I don't want anyone to get in trouble, especially me.
No, but we can still gobble that.
Well, yeah. The microbiome. So basically, right, the bacteria in our gut. What is it? Why does it matter? How do we rebuild it? How do we know if it needs to be rebuilt in the first place? That's kind of the journey. So a little bit of background. We'll get to this in the next slide, but what is the microbiome exactly? Because that keeps changing. I did a similar seminar on this back in November, and I revamped my entire presentation. So there's just so much more new information coming out all the time on this. So what are the different communities in the microbiome? I didn't even know there were different communities in the microbiome. I thought it was one whole community, but apparently there's more than one. My gut influences what other health systems in my body. So you know me already, I can get off track really fast, but the gut and the brain. So I haven't even read this book yet, but and then same author, Dr. Emmerin Mayer, the gut immune connection. Maybe I'll show these closer to the camera so people at home can see that. I'll just leave these out here. And I can even pass them around. Yep, great idea. Thank you for that. So there's just so much information out there. So affects our mind, it affects our immune system. What else does it affect? We'll touch on that a little bit tonight. And then we're going to spend a bit of time, maybe about 15 minutes tonight. And the reason I'm redoing this whole presentation too is that we have new testing. Very affordable. We're going to get through that tonight. Spend about 15 minutes understanding what that test is and so forth, what it costs, what does it entail. Because again, if we're spending hundreds of dollars, and hopefully not thousands, but hundreds of dollars on probiotics and things to rebalance our gut, how do we know that it needs to be rebalanced to rebuilt in the first place? And then how do we know that all of those dollars on those probiotics are even doing any good? Now I have an affordable way to offer to patients a way to get a baseline test and then to retest to evaluate that. So, yeah, how can I rebuild my guts, and prevent breakdown? And how do I even know they're breaking down?
Does breakdown include ulcers?
I would definitely include breakdown with ulcers. Like a good example, like an H. pylori. Like a lot of times when we do get an ulcer in our stomach, a lot of times there's that H. pylori bacteria that is residing in that ulcer, keeping that ulcer from healing. And so, back in the day, there was I think it was called the Healy pack. There was I can't even tell you what's in it anymore. There's 2 antibiotics, I think amoxicillin, clindamycin, and maybe Prevacid, and a PPI, to basically kill off any kind of gut bacteria in the stomach, to neutralize the acid so that the stomach lining can heal. So.
Okay, just one more question.
Yep.
I'll shut up. And if they're not H. pylori.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not sure on that one. Yeah. Would your doctor still give you that Healy pack? Hard to say.
Wants to scope me.
Yeah.
I don't want to
do that. Yeah. Yeah. So microbe or microbiome is a collection of microbes. What does that even mean? We'll look at that. That live in and on the human body. Basically, these creatures are on our skin, in our GI tract, in and on your reproductive system, basically all over. The main focus tonight is going to be talking about from our mouths to our butt, but they're elsewhere too. And obviously, I think we all know that, of course. Bacteria play the major role by numbers. However, what I'm learning about too with this other author I'll mention in a minute, we're host to a lot of fungus. And so parasites are in there, protozoa, amoebas, viruses, bacteriophages, which are basically viruses that eat up bacteria. So there's more than just one player. It's more than just taking a probiotic to bump up your natural flora and then call it a day and you're done. A good example of this, of why this is more complex now, I've had patients come in, spend $100 on a probiotic, and they don't feel any better. And I'm scratching my head, well, why didn't that work, right? It's not just about buying the highest what they call CFUs, colony-forming units, the number of how many billion of bacteria are in this capsule. It's not just about the numbers of good bacteria in that probiotic that you're swallowing anymore. There's a whole concert, right? There's a whole symphony of all these different players involved now that we have to figure out how many of the good guys do we have, who are the good guys, and then how many of the bad guys do we have and what do their numbers look like. And the hard part is sometimes when we have the bad guy, let's just talk about the bad guys, for example, like Candida, for example. Everyone typically knows about like Candida infections and sugar cravings. Those aren't necessarily bad in our GI tract. So if we do this stool test that we'll get to down the road here, you might flag as having Candida, but at a level that's fine. So, but how do we know that for sure? Okay, now we've got a test to actually say, okay, let's put a number on it. Let's quantify it. So that to me is exciting. And then I can say, okay, I've got this information. Now I can give you the right protocol to fix the problem. Before, where we're just kind of throwing it at the wall, see what sticks, and crossing my fingers going, I hope that works, So we don't have to do that as much anymore. So we want to think of 3 main communities in this microbiome. So we want to think of bacteria now. Typically, we all know of that. When I say, let's talk about the microbiome, everyone thinks bacteria. But now we want to start thinking about fungus, and we also want to think about viruses. Tonight, I'm mainly going to still focus on bacteria and fungus. I'm not going to get too much into viruses, but know that they're down there. They're hanging out. They're playing around with these other guys too, and they're not all bad. So this is a quote from Dr. Mahmoud, if I can say that right, Ghanem, who wrote, and I'll show this up too and pass this around, the total gut balance, in that they are in us, but not of us, and each microbe has its own DNA and its will to survive. So we're talking about all of this bacteria, all of these fungus that are inside our GI tract with their own DNA. But they have a profound influence on our health all over the board. So we got to treat these, symbiotic creatures, gently and in a proper manner, so they don't get upset with us. So that's kind of how I'm thinking of that. So they need us to survive, right? We need them to survive. It's a two-way street. So why all the hype? So the microbiome directly, this is where we could again spend all day on this too, but directly, indirectly influences how we respond to certain medications. Unless I skipped this class or this lecture in pharmacy school, I don't remember learning about that one. So sorry to my professors out there. But thank you to my my fellow classmates to keep me up to speed. Mood and behavior. And some of these things if you think about them, are intuitive. So when we get a bad GI bug, do we feel all that well? No, of course not. Changes or chances for developing diseases. So things like type 1, type 2 diabetes, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, all the above. Yep, I think I got them. Yep, got them. Okay. So there's a whole list of other diseases that are out there that we're unfortunately increasing our odds of catching. Digestion, of course, is under there. Sleep. I notice just for myself, I don't take a probiotic every day, but probably after learning about this now, I feel like I want to. But I sleep better when I take my probiotic. It's a very subtle thing. Obviously, there's a million factors that affect our sleep, but if I take my probiotic, I'm always a guinea pig with everything that I'm selling here, but I'll take a probiotic for a few days and notice, oh yeah, my sleep's improved, and my watch is telling me, all this technology now, but I got the watch that tells me my sleep score went from an 85 to an 89, just by a probiotic. So it's kind of cool, or at least in my mind, I think so, right? Weight. So there's a lot of correlation, connection between having dysbiosis or bad gut bacteria and having this inability to lose weight or just constantly gaining weight. The immune system. So I always say at least half of our immune system is really in our GI tract, and the bacteria are trying to figure themselves out. We've got our immune system saying, okay, what do we let in from our GI tract into our bloodstream? What don't we let in? So on and so forth. Skin health. And again, if we think that bigger picture, thinking outside of bacteria, there's again fungal infections, athlete's foot, all that stuff. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So that's all possible contributors. So yeah, we're doing a lot of potty talk tonight. So, and that, I don't know if you notice that, but that toilet seat's the wrong size for that bowl. But anyways. There's a story behind that, but I'm not going to get into that.
Oh, it's a deer. I thought it was
yeah, there's a couple of deer there, okay. But that's a long bowl, elongated bowl, but a short seat on there. But I put that on there. But again, we're not going to get into that story tonight. And nor is that my toilet in my house. Microbes perform a number of functions for well-being. So they regulate homeostasis. Some of these things I'm going to go through a little bit quicker. They produce a number of beneficial compounds. We'll get to that in a minute. Increase nutrient absorption. So we're thinking we're eating a healthy meal. Why am I not benefiting from, buying all organic foods or things like that? Well, those bacteria down there and the fungus down there, we need those guys to help absorb the good nutrients that we're trying to consume from our food. Again, the book I just talked about with Dr. Mayer about communication with your brain, there's this whole gut, I don't want to get into that tonight, but this whole gut-brain connection. So, and then it seals the gut. So it forms this, hopefully this, semi-impermeable layer, even though it's one cell layer thick, but trying to figure out which food particles and microbes that need to stay out to not allow that to get into the bloodstream. But then at the same time, obviously our bodies are producing metabolic waste. So we don't want toxins from our blood going back in the other way too. I almost kind of think of that as a reverse osmosis system. We want the bad stuff that we did digest, keep that in the gut, so it just remove it from the stool. But then at the same time, the good nutrients that we did eat, we want to get those absorbed in. A lot of chemistry going on there. So some examples, I found this interesting. B12. I was always like, if vegetarian diet, one of the things that got poo-pooed about a vegetarian diet is, they don't eat any meat. How are they going to get their B12? They always got a supplement with B12. Well, back in the day, I learned is that, guess what? We had bacteria that made B12 for us. Well, now with all the Roundup and everything being, pesticides, herbicides, and the microbiome of our soil, that's a whole nother discussion, getting pulverized. Those bacteria aren't getting into our food. They're not getting into our body for us to make B12. So we got to supplement with B12.
So are any of these things still made in our gut?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. To some level, K1 is. B12, hard to say. Yeah, I don't.
Do you know which strain what bacteria B12 is?
I don't. I haven't memorized off the top. That's right. Yeah, I would argue though. There's some literature that I've read that says you still depends on the quality of the meat, but if you're just eating, if you're not being choosy about the meat that you're eating, you still may not be getting enough B12.
Well, and if cows are eating depleted feed.
Right. Are they pasture raised? Are they eating the way that their diet should be eating? It's going back to, it's not the cow, it's the how. How is the cow raised? What are they eating? They have a ruminous gut. They should be being grass fed, not being tied up to a pole to be fed corn. That's not their natural diet. So is it really the beef that's the problem, or the way that animal's being raised is the problem? That's a whole nother discussion too. We might have more questions at the end of this talk than what I'm going to try to answer tonight. But like K1, we make vitamin K1 just about, I won't say every day, but just about every week. We work with a natural birthing center, and the moms there, and the providers there, of course, but the mom makes the decision to not do the K1 injection because there's all kinds of things in that injection that they don't want. So we make a vitamin K1 drop in fractionated coconut oil that they give the baby, because K1 helps us with coagulation, right? If we get a cut, K1 comes in and helps us to stop bleeding. Well, when you're a newborn, you don't have that your microbiome isn't set up yet. It's just getting set up. So your gut bacteria to make K1 as a newborn, they're not there. It's not there. So that's just one little tiny example. All my kids, for the record, did get the vitamin K shot in the hospital. Actually, well, three out of the 4 did. The 4th one got it at home, but anyways. Short chain fatty acids. That's what the FCFA stands for. Those are made by bacteria in the colon. And so, and you can get those, that's one way. But in an ideal setting, to get short chain fatty acids in our diet is to consume things like coconut oil, short chain fatty acids that are medium chain fatty acids, MCT oil essentially, that the bacteria is going to break down in the colon. And short chain fatty acids like butyrate, propionate, there's one more that I'm forgetting. helps with colon health. It helps to heal the colon tremendously well. We actually make short chain fatty acid enemas for doctors for patients with colitis. It works that well. Again, they're all you can build these compounds. I can basically buy all these short chain fatty acids, put them in a solution, and put them in an enema bottle, and have that patient run that through their colon 2, 3, 4 times a day. Pretty cool stuff. And then that colitis is just gone. It's awesome. Super expensive. And guess what it smells like when I make those in the lab? Poop. Poop. It smells like poop. Yep. Should have had a chemistry set out here. We could have done done a little experiment. All right. So I skipped that slide, but your microbiome fingerprint. None of our fingerprints are the same from person to person, right? No two human microbiomes are alike either. So that gets really tricky from a healthcare provider perspective of, oh my God, how am I going to treat this patient? And they have the same symptoms as this patient, but all of their microbiomes are different. So what's the right protocol? And that's where this test kit really comes to shine. So species of bacteria and fungus are specific to our diet, of course. Probably know that already. Our lifestyle, and then even just geographic locations. Where are we in the world? Where are we in the state of Wisconsin? Where are we in the country? What is that? Because that soil is going to be different. Our food's going to be different. That kind of thing. So that's what we get at with geographic locations. So we got bacteria, we got fungus. Who's the ruler of the land in the GI tract? I was trying to kind of figure this out. Like, well, what's really important? Are they both important? By numbers, bacteria make up. It says 99. I pulled that out of Dr. Gagne's book. 99.9% of our biome by the numbers. So bacteria, they just outnumber the fungus. But by size, fungi are 12 times or more larger than bacteria. So by size, you got more fungus, but by numbers, you got more bacteria. Still, I don't have an answer for that. I still don't think we really know who's ruling the roost, and does it really matter? Maybe. So again, fungus is all over our body, mouth, GI tract, skin, reproductive organs. I should have put that on there. But then we get this non-ideal locations, right? We get toenail fungus. I have dispensed fluconazole and all these antifungals over the years to try to kill nail fungus. Because once that fungus gets a hold in those tissues, it's almost impossible to get that out of there. So I'm sure we've all heard of athlete's foot and that kind of stuff. So fungus living in our toes and starting to smell bad. I make my 5-year-old change his socks all the time, right? Fungus love moisture too. Keeping your feet clean. Good old jock itch, right? We all know that one too. Genitals, yeast infections. So there's good fungus, there's bad fungus. How do we evaluate what's going on in our GI tract? We can now do this wonderful test that we'll get to. And implications though. So fungus are implicated with IBS, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, again, candida as well. So I was mainly focusing on bacteria, probiotics, but we have to start thinking about fungus now too, and there's good and bad yeast, essentially is the way I think of it now. One good example of a good yeast is Saccharomyces boulardii. I don't have a slide on this. I knew I was going to digress into the off track, I'm sorry, but there's a great product out there called Floristore. I used to sell that years ago to help treat C. diff or Clostridium difficile. So you're using a yeast to kill off a bad bacteria in your gut. And you can just go and Google Floristore and see all the research papers on that product, or just Saccharomyces boulardii is the name of that yeast. Actually, I think we sell it too, but I learned about that years ago, first couple of years out of pharmacy school. Patient came in, and I was educated about it. I had no idea what I was doing. Maybe I still don't, but I fake it really good now. but the patient came in and said, do you have flora stored? I'm like, well, I have no idea what that is. What are you taking it for? And she's like, oh, I've been diagnosed with C. diff again, and I heard this Saccharomyces boulardii is good to treat it. And sure enough, that's what she got put on, and she started taking it. And I just, every few months she'd come in, I'd keep asking her questions, and yeah, she was able to keep her C. diff at bay. The problem with some of those infections, though, is once you have them, it's like sometimes they're just always there. And if you cheat on your diet, your stress level goes up. We all kind of know that our body gets run down, then that opportunistic infection is going to come right back with a vengeance. So, which is the crappy part. No pun intended. So I tried to put in some key points here to kind of help me keep on track too. But you can completely refurbish your fungal biome, your microbiome, in as soon as 24 hours by changing your diet alone. So that's huge. You can't really do that necessarily with bacteria, but with fungus, whatever you got going on here, if you got a yeast infection, you got candida, just by changing your diet in 24 hours, you can have a new setup going on. Now, the problem is, are you going to maintain that diet? Are you going to stay away from all the refined sugars to keep that candida knocked down? Depends on the patient, right? And then the other point here, rebalancing fungi is step one in achieving a healthy gut microbiome. So not, in my mind, 3 days ago was, oh, I got to keep telling that patient to keep taking a probiotic, take a probiotic. Maybe that's not the case anymore. Maybe you need to take some oregano extract that kills off candida or the yeast and get the yeast under control. And then your natural flora is just going to do what it needs to do to survive in your GI tract like it was meant to do. Yep.
Can you take the, what did you just say,
Oregano extract?
Take it once a day?
The dosing typically is 2 to 3 times a day. Yeah. Continue, yeah. At least from a treatment standpoint. If you get your numbers back under control, then you should be fine to not have to take it. Like maybe as a preventative, take it once a day, I could see.
Okay.
Yep. Good question. Yeah. I don't want to get too much into dosing tonight, just because everyone's such right. There's so many specifics. Like what I say tonight for this particular situation may not apply to all patients. And
When you say oregano extract, you mean essential oil?
yeah, like the oil. Yeah, well, yeah, like I'm gonna jump off camera here, but they can still hear me at home. I've got, and I'm just grabbing this as an example, but this is ADP by Biotics Research, and it's got, extract from leaf, but yeah, oregano oil.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Good quality product, something similar to that would be fine too. So dysbiosis, I've used that word a couple times already, just to get on the same page. It refers to microbial imbalance. So that could be bacteria, that could be yeast, could be fungus, parasites, whatever, on or inside your body. So I mainly think of that as dysbiosis of my gut, but it could be, it could be jock itch. That's dysbiosis, right? Resulting symptoms of the GI tract here diarrhea, gas, bloating, nausea, indigestion, poor nutrient absorption, poor vitamin cofactor production. That's the other thing too. We got those bacteria that should be producing B12, which essentially they're not anymore. And then how much K1 are we actually producing from those bacteria?
What's
So,
the
just like essentially a vitamin. Yeah. Or even the short chain fatty acids. It's a byproduct. Maybe that's a better word. Yeah. Again, this slide I could spend all day on. Dysbiosis contributors. I should have expanded the title of this slide a little bit more, but dysbiosis contributors due to medications, due to pharmaceuticals. This isn't a comprehensive list, but it touches on some of the main ones that are out there. But the no-brainer one is antibiotics. They're going to kill off bacteria, bad bacteria, but they're also going to kill off some good bacteria. And so the more we're getting dumped onto antibiotics, we got to think, okay, I got to replenish my natural flora. And maybe now's a good time to talk about this, but typically when you take a probiotic, You're knocking down the bad guys that have established residency in your GI tract so that your natural flora can come back to life and flourish. Once that's established, usually after a few days, that probiotic that you ingested is gone. It's transient. It's just there to kind of reestablish what's going on, reestablish order, and then those bacteria, you excrete them. It's your natural flora, basically that flora that you were born with, that, you know, the day you were born. Those are the bacteria we want to get back up and running again. So, my least favorite, and again, you know this about me already. You should, well, you're going to know it now, but my least favorite drug class in the world, acid-reducing medications. One, because it's very personal to me. I was on Prevacid for 2 years, and at first thought it was going to heal my acid reflux, and it didn't. I don't want to get into that long story, but antacids, anywhere from a proton pump inhibitor to an H2RA blocker. So like a PPI would be like your Nexiums of the world, your Prilosec of the world, your Prevacids of the world. Your H2 blockers, your histamine blockers are like your ranitidine, your Zantac, your cimetidine. Even Tums would fall under this category. Anything that reduces acid in the stomach to a point where now you're messing up the pH of your whole GI tract. You're going to have bugs growing in places that you don't want, put it that way. And nobody ever essentially tells you that, or very few. And so if you're on those medications, you're going to take this test. I wouldn't be surprised your numbers are going to come back unbalanced. NSAIDs, here's one, right? Ibuprofen, over the counter. And I think I put some on here, like meloxicam, another NSAID. There's a whole list of them out there, right? Diclofenac, ketoprofen, list goes on and on. Any type of anti-inflammatory is going to start mucking up, and it can also, you know, cause kidney issues. It can cause that GI ulcer. So it's mucking up. Yeah, it takes away your arthritis pain, and I certainly take ibuprofen every now and then, but I have that awareness that, okay, I could be messing up my microbiome. I need to do something about that, so, or be more proactive on the side effects of these things. Steroids, like your prednisones of the world, if you're on long-term steroids for some reason, that could be mucking up your GI tract. Diabetic medication, metformin's a classic example. You can see patients with dysbiosis. I'm not going to get too far into this, but antipsychotics, anti-cancer, chemotherapy drugs, the list goes on from there too, but just be aware of that. Again, talk to me, talk to your doctor. If you're on medications that you're suspicious of, let's have that conversation and figure that out and see if that's the culprit. Then there's more, sorry. It's, more contributing factors of mucking up the gut. Levels of stress, I think we all know that too, and when we're under high levels of stress, our digestive tract does not work right. Our bodies are shutting down digestion to deal with the stress. Amount of sleep that we get, the smaller amount of sleep we get, you know, we're getting poor digestion, we're not getting complete digestion, we're not doing our regular rebuild and detox process at night. So that's mucking up a lot of stuff going on in the background. Eating junk food. So does anyone take a stab at what that picture is? It's not very clear.
One of the donut places.
Right? And there's sprinkles on there. Yeah, that's my kids' pancakes. They're like, you know, let's rummage through the pantry and find every sprinkle that's in the kitchen and dump it on there. I'm like, I don't even know if Monica was home that day, but
I thought they were bacteria.
yeah, we're right. Yeah, oh my God, it was the Halloween or the Christmas sprinkles, the birthday sprinkles, I don't know, the Christmas cookie sprinkles. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Eating refined sugars. I don't spend too much, but the amount of fiber intake. So bacteria feed off of all kinds of different fiber. One thing I did learn is that different bacteria feed on different fibers. And so you want to, again, eat an array of different vegetables and fruits so that you get different types of fibers, different lengths of fibers, so that different bacteria have enough fuel to proliferate and grow and do the good things that they need to. So eat a variety of fruits and vegetables in your diet. If you get a lot of gas and bloating from fiber, there is a neat non-fiber prebiotic that I like called, we sell it under the name IAG. I'm gonna go grab it quick so I can tell you the name of it. So some patients that come in, oh, I hate fiber. It causes so much gas and bloating. This is arabinogalactan. It's from the larch tree. Absolutely love this stuff, and it dissolves extremely well. And then you just stir it up. It has a sweet little taste to it. Doesn't taste bad at all, and that stuff works beautiful. I didn't want to get too much into the probiotic discussion tonight, but that's one prebiotic. If you don't do well with fibers, try that larch arabinogalactan. And the amount of exercise. I mean, a moderate amount of exercise. You don't want to go, too much or too little on that, of course. So that's dysbiosis. I just threw this slide in here a few minutes ago, but what is worse than sugar is actually artificial sweeteners. So stay away from those guys. They're linked to dysbiosis. So they're linked to the gut irregularities. And then the science isn't great on it, but possibly, I say possibly, maybe even more likely to induce glucose intolerance, because it's really tricking your body that sugar's coming down the pipe, and so then you get this inappropriate release of insulin because your body's thinking sugar is going to come down, and insulin's job is to take sugar and get it out of your bloodstream and put it into your cells. But if that sugar never shows up, that insulin's released, you actually become hypoglycemic. So I don't want any of you buying any more diet soda ever again. So that's just, I'd rather you just go drink a regular Mountain Dew than a diet Mountain Dew. Drink a regular Coke. No, I'm just kidding. Don't drink either one. But, all right. Lesser of two evils, I guess, though, right? So yeah. So how do we evaluate your risk? Refer to the handout. We'll get to that in just a second, and then let's test your microbiome. Because not everyone's gonna. The cost on the test kit's $130. They're $129, I guess. So it's not terribly expensive. And if you're going to do that as a baseline and then come up with a protocol, I'm going to want you to retest again. So really, I want you to be in for at least 2 tests. So that's $260. So just to have that awareness. But I just want to go through this. And this is what Dr. Ganyum in his book, I took this out of there. But this is a nice checklist. I wish I could somehow put this on our YouTube. I'm going to just put this up to the camera, and they can pause this maybe. If I quit shaking. And then they can just pause the video. All right. Hopefully they got most of those. But, oh, the little check boxes didn't print. Sorry about that. Were you born I'm just going to read through these real quick. But were you born C-section, hospitalized as a child, fed with a bottle rather than breastfed? Did you have colic as a baby? Take multiple antibiotics as a child? Did you grow up at home with any animals? And I just put on there, not including your siblings. My 2 older daughters, they're like, oh, I want to get a dog. I'm like, you got a brother and a younger sister. What? Yeah, perfect. Did you grow up in an exceptionally clean, hygienic environment? Did your family always use a dishwasher rather than washing dishes by hand? So on and so forth. Have you taken antibiotics multiple times as an adult? Here's that C. diff question that I was talking about earlier. Did you ever have C. diff infection? Do you or did you ever have asthma or allergies? Do you have a diagnosis of autoimmune disease, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, psoriasis, or celiac? Are you or were you ever overweight? Do you eat a high sugar diet? Are you under a lot of stress for prolonged periods of time? Would you describe yourself as mostly sedentary during the day? And are you over 50? So if you check more than 3 boxes, you're essentially at greater risk of dysbiosis. Not that that's the be all end all, but it just starts getting you thinking about, okay, how many things are setting me up here?
Which
So-
book is it from?
The Total Gut Balance book. Yeah. So this is my, well, Lily is now, I forgot, 9 years old. But at 2, she had like, they didn't call it pneumonia, but some type of random lung infection, just dumped with a ton of antibiotics. And so now she does, well, and again, is this correlated or not, but she does suffer with quite a bit of constipation. Was that due to this episode of being in the ICU for a week at Children's, being dumped in with a ton of antibiotics? Maybe. I'm sure it didn't help her microbiome. We could say that for sure. So, but just look over that checklist. See, if you got more flags coming up on that list, then we should talk. So we're going to get into this. Oh, man, I'm yammering pretty good here. We're already 45 minutes in. All right, I'll try to speed this up a little bit. Testing your microbiome. So step 1 in the rebuild process. I won't even talk about that picture. So going back to that book with Dr. Ganyum, he's partnered with Standard Process, or maybe the other way around. Standard Process is partnered with him, with his lab, with this biome test kit. So you're getting the expert in the field of fungus and bacteria is where your kit's going to. Because there's a lot of companies out there selling GI map. I had almost every week somebody comes in and says, here's my gut test results, what do you think? And I'm like, how much time do you have? Because I don't have much. But this kit makes it very easy for me as the provider, but even very, very easy for you as the patient to even just read through the report yourself, and you'll get a pretty good idea of what you need to do, what you don't, what you have to stop, and all that stuff. So he's created a state-of-the-art microbiome testing platform, allows us to collect high-quality samples and automatically turn raw data into powerful insights. Some of these tests that I've seen, all these reports, it's just like a number on a piece of paper, right? And you got like your red zones, and then like yellow, and then green is good. And like, okay, so now what do I do? And so there's this picture of like, again, where I'm saying it's not like just because you have some bad guys in your GI tract, let's quantify them. Are they to a level where they're problematic or not? And that's what I like about this test kit. So there's that. So the standard process gut report overview. So you get a comprehensive profile of the gut microbiome. It reports critical bacteria and fungi that are present in your sample. It compares your sample to an extensive map of normal healthy gut flora that's been identified in the NIH Human Microbiome Project. So you've got a set standard of healthy people. What do their microbiomes look like? They analyze all of this data, and then they're going to take your sample and lay that on, hypothetically, right? They're going to lay that on top of the healthy bacteria people and see where your bacteria doesn't, where the shortcomings are. I think that just makes more sense of the data. Gives you this ideal ranges is in there. It gives you actionable insights. So, okay, I've got all these numbers. What does it mean? What do I do? Gives you dietary lifestyle, and it gives you some like Medi-Herb and Standard Process supplements recommendations as well too. You're going to get my recommendations obviously as well. So I don't want to just limit. It'd be foolish to just limit recommendations just to one company. Obviously, Standard Process is supplying the kits, and that's who I'm getting them through, and they partner with Dr. Ganyu. But we've got a ton of other supplements. And again, Standard Process is a great company, but they don't offer everything that I would potentially use to heal or to fix somebody's gut. It's a home test kit. I'll get to that in just a minute too, or maybe after the seminar and we're done recording, I can show you guys that here. So why do it? Gut issue. So anyone that has diarrhea, constipation, food sensitivities, a lot of allergies. I get so many patients nowadays coming in with multiple allergies. We got probably, I don't know, I would guess 5 new patients every day that walk through the door and they fill out our med intake form, and they're just sitting there like for 10 minutes filling out all their allergies. And I'm like, holy cow, so many allergies. to not only to medications, but then they're allergic. They have a whole list of foods they're allergic to. So if you're that patient that just multiple chemical sensitivities, a lot of food allergies, I would strongly encourage you to do the gut test, gut microbiome test. Anyone with chronic inflammation, and that's inflammation is such a loose term now. I mean, every disease is related to inflammation. So just about anyways, but chronic inflammation can both be a product of gut imbalance and lead to gut imbalance. So you might do this, you might have inflammation or osteoarthritis and something like that, do the gut test and you might come back fine. But then 6 months later, you still have your osteoarthritis. You're probably still, maybe you're doing NSAIDs or whatever you're doing to self-treat the pain from that. And then now you've developed your gut imbalance. And then the last one here is anyone interested in optimizing their health? That's pretty vague, obviously, in my opinion, but it says gut balance radically affects overall health. Imbalance can promote poor health far beyond the gut. And we all know that essentially. I'm going to skip this slide, but basically it's an at-home test kit. Not to get too gross here, but you're doing a stool swab. So I'll get to that later too. We're talking about poop today. All right. And this is the nice thing too. Again, with this lab, we are putting these results up against the NIH database based on the Human Microbiome Project. So we're getting top of the line information from one of the top leading doctors in the country about how to deal with the microbiome. That's about, again, you're going to get a comprehensive report. You're going to get, I mean, it's pretty intense, including the most common phyla making up the gut flora in your gut. It's going to give you a breakdown of both bacteria and fungus in your GI tract, not just bacteria. And then you get a consult with me. If I have any questions on the report, I'm calling Dr. Ganyu. Well, I probably won't speak to him directly, but one of his assistants, I'm sure. But I have that access if I need it. And yeah.
So earlier you mentioned changing your diet for 24 hours.
Yes. Yep.
So, I mean, I'm assuming you obviously don't want to make any dietary changes before you do the test.
You want to get a baseline. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Good question. Yep. This is about patient registration. So it does get a little bit tricky with actually registering the test kit. It's not as simple as just buying this kit, swabbing your poop and sending that in. You got to go online. You got to go through this portal. Everything's got to be HIPAA compliant now with all that kind of stuff. So there are some steps here. I'm not going to go through each one here, but well, maybe I should. But you got to register through the portal. You got to enter your what they call sample ID, or just your. So when you submit your test kit, you're going to mail it off to them. But when you register your kit, you're going to tell them the unique identifying ID number on your kit as well. And then you're going to select a provider. You're going to get basically a drop-down menu of, okay, when this report gets done, it's going to go to you, but it's also going to come to us. My wife, Monica, is registered as the healthcare provider. So you search Monica Zatarski from the drop-down. I don't know exactly how this works, but that's what I envision. You're online. You're filling out this form. Who's your healthcare provider? Oh, MD Custom RX, Monica Zatarski. Okay, found her. Do that, and then it's going to ask you some lifestyle questions, some dietary questions, just to try to get a background feel of who you are, and then so that's it at that point. But there is a process to that. This goes through the laboratory operations. I'm going to skip through that, but it is very rigorous. They do all this like PCR optimization, DNA extraction. I mean, they are leading edge figuring out all of this bacteria and fungus that are going on in your GI tract and mapping all of those out. I'm going to skip that test or that slide too. We talked mostly about that anyways. Again, you get this, what they call a gut score. You get lifestyle insights, nutritional suggestions, supplement insights, and I'll certainly give you more than that when I review the report. Some of these slides here are just examples. I just did some cut and paste of what the report looks like. But it is laid out nicely, like description of your phyla, your good bacteria, your pathogenic species, description of beneficial species, lifestyle suggestions, supplement suggestions, dietary supplement suggestions, product selection or product considerations. And they do a good job of putting everything together instead of just giving you numbers on a page. They give you the whole package here. And that's just more of the same stuff there. Gut health report, so on and so forth. Okay, so summary of benefits of buying a biome kit. You've got access to me, and I've got access to Dr. Ganyum. Stool test results reflect comprehensive understanding both of bacteria and fungus. So that's the beauty of it too. We're getting both sides of this picture. Gold standard sequencing in bacteria and fungus. I won't get into all of that science tonight. Access to the largest microbiome database with bacterial and fungal strains. So there's so many strains we haven't identified yet too, is what he talks about in his book. There's hundreds of them because they can't grow them on a petri dish essentially. So there's still a lot that we do need to figure out. But at least this test is giving us some answers for patients on what could be going on.
Well, and do they mutate like we're hearing about corona?
I would think it probably could, right? Yeah.
Generations.
Yeah. I don't see why they would stop or why they wouldn't. Yeah. Will to survive, right? Yeah. Yep. And yeah, you get this online portal for communication with me, and I got online communication with the lab. So again, they thought of everything, I think, on this one. Just some simple things, some microbiome, I would say superfoods. I'm running close to an hour here. Apple cider vinegar, love that stuff. I like the Bragg's. Again, you want to go unfiltered. I've been drinking apple cider vinegar since I cured myself of my acid reflux, which was 17 years ago. Take a teaspoon. What is a teaspoon? Is what, 5 mLs. Dilute that in a glass of water, 6 to 8 ounces of water, and drink that, 3 times a day. Essentially, it's a good 1 teaspoon. That's my recipe. Before meals, yeah. Or you could even do it after too. But usually after a meal, I don't want to put too much water on top of that meal, so I might scale that back. Yeah. I used to put honey in it, but I don't even do that anymore. But some people, you get used to the taste.
Pretty good.
Yeah, apple cider vinegar. Yeah. If you don't like the taste of it, if it's too strong, just dilute it down more. Yeah, and then kind of work your way up. Pistachios. I won't get into all of that, but walnuts, pistachios, and coconut oil. Coconut oil, again, is in my mind a superfood for a multitude of different reasons, but that is a saturated fat, but it's a medium chain triglyceride. It's a smaller fat, breaks down quicker as fuel. So that type of fat does not store on your body. You will burn that stuff up. It helps improve your metabolism. It's got antifungal properties, antibacterial properties to it. Coconut oil can break down. It's actually capric and caprylic acids. So when you start getting into the fungal world, again, this is just one example, but this is called caprin, which is your caprylic and capric acid. Great for improving GI health if there's a fungal infection involved, or just eat some coconut oil too. You can do that. So this is microbiome diet rules, not microbiome. So when we see microbiome, we're talking fungus. Okay. This could apply for the microbiome too, but this is strictly fungus. So you want to eat a whole food-based diet, low glycemic. I don't want to get into that, but does anyone not know what that means? Low glycemic, low sugar. If it's high in sugar or high in carbs, then it's slow to break down. So it doesn't raise your blood sugar quick, basically, that in a nutshell. Rich in fiber, and I would add rich in a variety of different fibers and resistant starches. That way you're feeding all of your bacteria evenly out. Full of mono and polyunsaturated plant fats. So I'm a huge fan of avocados. Great example of that. Low in saturated fat and animal fat. This is where again, there's only so many hours in the day, right? But I would like to challenge that a bit and saying, well, saturated fat, why is that? Why? Is it because of the way that animal was raised again? because if that animal was pasture raised, that saturated fat is going to be a lot better for you than the saturated fat from a grain-fed cow. And then flexible, diverse, and customizable. So you want a diet that has variety, that you can, it's obtainable, that kind of thing, and it works for you. All right, and then one more take-home point. So I'll get to that picture in a second. Cell for cell, we are only about half human. So if we count up all the cells in our body, well, in our body and in our gut, we're only half human. Yeah, so we got to think about that. So these are my kids just on Sunday, that cooking Father's Day dinner. I had steaks on the grill. They were, I don't know if they were grass fed. They came from a local farm though. So, but anyways, corn on the cob, probably GMO though. It was not organic. Sorry about that one. I turned around for 5 minutes and then I hear all this laughing, and they are just in deep in this mud, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? And I was gonna get mad and yell at them. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm gonna go grab my phone and snap a picture. You can definitely tell they got some microbes from that dirt. So, and so did the little one. And so that, yeah, it was raining on Sunday, right? And so they made this mud. This was a lot of water collects in my yard, and so there was grass there, and there wasn't a hole there. And Luke and Joy decided to have some fun, and that is her Sunday dress too that she's still wearing. So I hope Monica can get the mud out of that one. But yeah, you gotta have fun, right? And eat some dirt as a kid, improve their GI tracts. Hopefully, I don't. You probably know this already, but I don't spray the pesticides and herbicides on my lawn. I'm the neighbor that's just, picking the dandelions out of my lawn, kind of guy. So
No, they're actually
that's
good
me.
for bees.
So, oh,
I don't-
the dandelions are?
Yes, they are.
Oh.
And there are signs you can put on your lawn saying like the dandelions are for the bees,
Oh.
so maybe people leave it alone.
I didn't even know that. So, all right. So I'll leave that one up. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you for those that tuned into the YouTube. Hopefully you could follow all that. I'm going to sign off. So thank you. How many people? Oh, we got 8 people that watched online. So that's nice. And I'll say end of that.